Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Moletrap here, bringing you game number 2 of the quarterfinals between Goodfriend, who's Munchu there on your screen as his ID in the game right now, and Midas, whose ID in the game is Midas. And there we go, Goodfriend with his jacket unzipped, looking cool. It's going to be the orange Terran at the right side of the map, and this series is trying to torture my eyeballs, ladies and gentlemen. The last game was white Terran versus yellow Terran, and I couldn't tell which SCVs were attacking and which were repairing because they looked exactly the same. And now we're going to have yellow Terran versus orange Terran, which is actually, I think, slightly better. Or it looks like maybe white Terran versus orange Terran. Look at it. It's yellow and white are so similar, I actually thought it was yellow. I thought that's yellow. Apparently that's white. I don't know. They're similar colors, though. This is going to be difficult, so apologies in advance again for if I get things mixed up here. Anyway, Goodfriend has been looking so solid. You know, I didn't really start things off talking about him too much, but I just really feel like he has been on fire lately. In the previous Star League, we saw him go 3-0 in his group, and I believe he 2-0'd his quarterfinal, got to the semifinals, and had the misfortune of facing Jelizerg, if I remember correctly, in the semifinals. So he didn't get into the semifinals, but he still played really well. So here you have him again, 3-0'd his group. He's now 1-0 in his quarterfinal. If he can get a second game in a row, he'll be undefeated again going into the semifinals. And then in that case, instead of facing Jelizerg, he will be facing, I'm going to pop up the bracket here for a sec, the winner of Go Rush versus Reach, which will still be a difficult semifinal for him, but maybe slightly easier than Jelizerg. And if he does make it to the finals, he may actually have to face Jelizerg, because Jelizerg is going to be facing off against Zelos in the semifinal on the other side of the bracket. So anyway, but he still has to beat Midas. Still has to beat Midas in the second game here. But I'm just kind of saying that I feel like Goodfriend has just been more solid of a player. He's just been playing really, really well, and I kind of favor him in this situation. Midas, SK Telecom won. I didn't know Midas was on SK Telecom for some reason. Not that I thought he was on another team, but I just kind of I didn't know what team Midas was on, and I'm a little bit surprised to find out he was on SKT1. I wonder if he moved teams or something at some point. There wasn't really, in StarCraft, there was never really in baseball or football or whatever, basketball, you know, your traditional American sports, players get traded around. Not a lot, but players get traded around, right? And so you might have someone start their career on one team and then go into another team. I don't feel like you see that ever in StarCraft, do you? Is there a time? I can't think of a single time when a player was traded to another team or anything like that, right? The only time when players transferred teams was when their teams got extinct. Like in 2010, some of the sponsors pulled out and some of the teams had to dissolve, and they had to make Team 8 in order to make sure there was an even number of teams in the Pro League and everything. And Team 8 was composed of players from other teams, but it wasn't really the same thing. So, but you never see oh, they traded Midas to such and such team to get a first-round draft pick, or I don't know, whatever it was. It's kind of interesting to think about. No one was ever, they were never oh, well, we need a strong Terran on our lineup, so let's trade 2 of our up-and-coming Zergs for Firebat here. I don't know. Just kind of interesting to think about. I wonder if that was by design or if it was just by the fact that it was just kind of awkward to transfer teams and there was more team loyalty or something. Anyway, we do have the white Terran and the orange Terran both pushing out of their bases briefly and then falling back to their bases. It looked like there was going to be a little bit of an encounter, but there's not actually going to be an encounter. We got 2 factories built by Midas. We have a factory in a starport built by Goodfriend. So a little bit of a divergence in strategy here. It's going to come down to the tactics to see which one can take better advantage of the tech path they have chosen. Looks like Midas actually pushing out on the map here. He's got a significant number of vultures. This could be trouble for Goodfriend actually, because he's going to get a Wraith out, but one Wraith can't kill stuff fast enough to really make that big of a difference. Oh, he has a takeout as well, though. Can he hold the ramp? He's on the low ground. He's on the low ground. And it looks like Midas doesn't want to push down that ramp against that tank. Even though he has the high ground advantage, the tank is just too scary. But Goodfriend can't also really push up the ramp, right? The game that we saw the other day where they tried to... I think it was... who was that? Another TVT. I can't remember. Too much StarCraft all runs together in my head. There was another TVT where the Terran had a little bit of an advantage, and they tried to push up the ramp. Oh, it was Zelos and Uv, I think. One of them tried to push up the ramp, and they had a better army, but they were pushing up the ramp, and so their tank missed all their shots, and they actually lost the encounter. So, anyway, the Wraith now, though, has the tactical advantage. Can try and pick away at things, but there's still a few Marines, so it's not like you can just pick. You can't just kill all the vultures single-handedly. Goliaths are on the way to rejoin this army as well, and Midas does not want to give up the high ground. He's trying to push the top of the ramp. He's got mines that he can plant there as well, so the tanks can definitely not come up. Ooh, that mine got dreadfully close to doing damage to the tank. Don't think it actually damaged the tank though, but he has siege mode as well and a Wraith to spot up the high ground. So even though he's gonna miss shots shooting up there, it doesn't matter because siege mode is super strong and he can take shots without really much of a disadvantage. He runs the Marines in there just to soak up the mines in order to be able to get up that ramp a little bit quicker. Now he is at the top of the ramp, so no more missed shots. Midas still does have a little bit more units, but he just cannot beat the siege mode. He can't beat the siege mode right now, so he's forced to fall back a little bit here. Are we going to see Midas expand off of this? Are we going to see him just keep pushing out units? You're going to see him join the encounter with his own siege tanks. It looks like he doesn't have siege mode yet. And in the meantime, so the Wraiths have kind of won a little bit of an advantage for Goodfriend. And he's able to push out here. Oh, he knows there's mines there. He needs to be careful. Oh, no, that's his own mine, actually. So, Goodfriend actually pushes out a little bit too far. Midas does have siege mode. A little bit of a mistake there, pushing out into the siege mode range of Goodfriend. They're both barely outside of each other's range, I think. Oh, no, those two bottom tanks are within range of each other to siege each other. And Goodfriend, with the advantage of the vision of the barracks, actually takes him out there. Midas could have, if he'd scanned or something like that, I don't know if he has scanners, but if he'd had vision there, he would have taken an extra shot there, and I think he could have won that tank battle, but instead Goodfriend takes the advantage there with the barracks floating in that position. So Midas putting the pressure on, but actually losing a little bit of a tactical advantage because of that. Now Goodfriend pushing out a little bit farther. Now, okay, now we have Midas's barracks joining the fray as well. It's going to come in here as well. Sorry about that. The VOD apparently having a little bit of an issue with the sound. Look at those barracks. Can you tell whose barracks is whose? Which barracks is whose? I can't. I'm like, why? Again, you know, if this was 1080p or something like that, it'd probably be relatively easy to tell white versus orange. But with the low graphics, it's just hard to make things out. So apologies again for that. Anyway, we do have the control tower being put onto the starport now for Midas. He's countering with his own wraiths as well. The yellow/white wraith coming in here to kill the orange/yellow tanks. Is going to do some damage, and actually, he doesn't have any Marines left. He used all his Marines to clear mines. Orders, sir! What do you want me to do, sir? Walk out into that minefield, please. Sir? Nope, that's your job. That's your orders. Go walk out into the minefield. Okay, sir. Don't worry, the siege tanks will clean up the mines before you get killed. Honest. But now he doesn't have any anti-air. Oh, what are these SCVs doing? I mean, they're transferring in, but he just lost a... Okay, I actually don't know if he knew those tanks were up there. So, the Wraiths winning the air battle of the barracks versus barracks. It looks like Midas is going to get mining at his expansion at the same time, though. But that was a little bit bad to lose a few SCVs transferring over to the second base. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. And now it's interesting. So Goodfriend is kind of trying to position against that position. He's trying to kind of do a spread parallel to the line there, so to make sure that he you know, he can kind of maybe he might try and do a flank as well. But at the meantime, he wants to position it so that if Midas moves his tanks, his own tanks will be in a position that multiple ones can attack at the same time. So it's good tactical positioning by those tanks is what I'm saying basically. Oh, he's gonna load up a couple tanks into a dropship. Where's that gonna go? Is he actually gonna run that maybe around to the north and siege up behind Midas's expansion? Send the Wraiths in as well. Actually, he's using it now defensively. Midas pushing into Goodfriend's main base, trying to shell some of the buildings here. Midas forced to actually defend here. Sorry, Goodfriend forced to defend in his main. And actually, Midas has a Wraith. I thought that Goodfriend was the only one with Wraiths, and so I was a little bit confused there. But he's actually ferrying units into the main base here, and he's got his units still on the high ground as well. He's ferrying his reinforcements into the main base, while his other units are still on the high ground above it, so he can actually still shell the low ground tanks. Very nicely done by Midas. Now, with that dropship, can he actually maybe drop some units on top of those tanks? Might be a good way of doing that to deal with that situation. So, again, a lot of pressure being applied here. Midas, it's feeling like it's generally like, it feels like he's been just putting a lot of pressure on in all these games. He's been the aggressor a lot, and Goodfriend has been the one that's had to respond to the aggression defensively. But he is able to respond. He's been able to do a good job of responding to the pressure, not folding underneath that pressure, and dealing with it very expertly in order to not fold under the pressure, basically. And, you know, it looks like he's done it. The pressure on the low ground has kind of been pushed back a little bit. Midas is not really able to push too much there. And actually, it looks like Goodfriend is looking to do his own drop there onto Midas's expansion. Midas is on top of it, though. It doesn't look like there's going to actually accomplish much there. So, whew, I have to like take a breath here. Both players kind of resetting. I'm gonna have to reset my brain a little bit too, because there was a lot of pressure. Looked like there was gonna be some counter pressure with a drop by Goodfriend, but didn't end up happening. So kind of a little bit of a pause and reset. And while we're doing that, Goodfriend is actually taking a third base. So again, Goodfriend remaining cool and taking the long-term advantage. You know, taking that economic advantage so that he can win the long game, even amidst the pressure. Right? If my opponent was dropping tanks and Goliaths into my main base, I wouldn't be thinking, you know what I need to do right now? I need to make a command center. I need a new base right now. But these are pros, and they know that they have to be thinking 3 steps ahead of their opponents already thinking 3 steps ahead, which equals 6 steps. And 6 steps from now equals a new command center, a new base, basically. So he's going to go ahead and do that. Wraith taking out a dropship. Hopefully wasn't full. I don't think it was. But that's still kind of an inconvenient loss there for, I believe, Midas. I believe that was Midas's dropship that died. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. Anyway, it looks like Goodfriend has kind of relieved himself of the pressure. He's relieved himself on Midas's forces. And Midas has been pushed back to the middle of the map. So at this point, this looks like it's solidly in Goodfriend's favor because the pressure has been relieved. He's been pushed back. They're kind of setting up a more steady, long-term firing line in the middle of the map. And so without that pressure being put onto Goodfriend, things are really kind of resetting, right? And so that means we have to kind of step back and be like, okay, if there's no tactical advantage for either player right now, and they're just setting up a stalemate in the middle with their tank firing lines, then who has the advantage? And the answer is the player with the better economy. And right now, that's Goodfriend. Midas has made more bases as well, though. I feel like he's a little bit still behind in the... Goodfriend has been mining his third for a while. He's getting his fourth up now. She was really shocked. And then she saw herself on camera and was like, whoop. That was really funny. That was like a different what face. Anyway, speaking of which, though, well, actually not speaking of which at all. Well, I guess speaking of tactical advantages, Goodfriend has been able to get more forces, and he's actually pushing it up against the expansions of Midas. So Midas forced to fall back a little bit. from that third base. So again, Goodfriend really stabilizing, really cementing that that economic advantage with the slight tactical advantage that he has. You know, transferring units over to that fourth base as well to go ahead and mine there. Spotted by the dropship of Midas though, so he actually could take that out. I think is that Midas's dropship? Yes, it is. So, oh wait, whose dropship are those? It looks like, okay, actually, Goodfriend dropping his own units to defend this position is going to clean that up. So he is going to actually save that fourth base. And I feel like he actually has the extra units that he can just leave those tanks and a couple Goliaths there as a defensive measure against drops and attacks and run-bys, etc. And still have an advantage on the map. So Goodfriend taking 4 bases, defending them. Midas taking 4 bases, not defending them, forced to float the third. The fourth base, I don't think has had any units transferred over to mine. Now here, though, is the possible advantage that he can take in the middle of the map, pushing out and saying, okay, well, if your units are attacking my top left third, if your units are defending your bottom middle expansion, you don't have as many in the middle of the map. And I'm going to push out and try and take advantage of that. Goodfriend, though, falling back those units from the top left expansion attack to rejoin the middle of the map and trying to shore up the holes in his defenses right now. And we are going to get into some more trench warfare that is TVT to a T. Goodfriend, I think, is just been kind of consistently positioning his units better as well. You know, you want your tanks in a line. You want them in a line, or even, you know, even better if a sort of a concave, where your units are focused firing so that they're all aimed at the same point. And the line makes it so that you can't be flanked as easily, basically. So you want your tanks in a line, essentially. Look at those SCVs. They're like, we're gonna get you, tanks. And he was actually scared off into a better position by the SCVs, but now these tanks aren't in position to actually shell the base. But it doesn't matter because he has to deal with these defensive forces first. Goodfriend dropping his own units over here, and actually his tanks are not in the best position, so he's actually going to lose his Goliaths. He's going to lose his Goliaths attacking in there, and let Midas's Goliaths live to defend the tanks, and the tanks are going to be shelling the gas there. He's going to lose those dropships, though. Midas losing the dropships, kind of falling back with them, but not a huge loss compared to the damage that he's doing by shelling the gas of that expansion there. Taking a gas out, I mean, again, you know, I've said this over and over again, but tanks, all the good Terran units, all the good Terran mech units take gas. And so if you can stop your opponent from mining gas at his expansions, it's almost as good as taking out the command center itself. So here's that base that Midas had been able to get up and running over on the left side of the map. And Goodfriend is going to say, no, sir, you cannot mine at that base. Go ahead and attack that, which leaves a little bit of an open position for Midas to take potentially more control in the middle. But, you know, it's like Goodfriend has he has this economic advantage. He's able to make more units, so it's kind of okay if he loses a little bit of a tactical spot here or there, because you can make up for your position a little bit with having more units. And if you've got more bases, you got more units, right? So the object of the game is to kill your opponent. That's right, Larry. If you can get more points, you can win the game. Sorry. I mean, you know, casting, you kind of have to just open your brain up. You know, when you're casting, part of casting is, you know, there's a conduit between your brain and your mouth, right? There's a pipe. And most of the time, you have a little valve on that pipe, right? And your brain is kind of making decisions about, okay, do I want to open this up or not, right? And when you're young, you haven't developed that valve yet, and you say whatever comes to your brain, and sometimes you say stupid stuff, right? So you develop throughout your life, you develop that valve where you can tamp it down, and you can open up different pipes to let certain things through to your mouth, right? Casting, you just have to open the pipe. You just have to open the valve. You have to trust your pipes and just let it flow, because otherwise you get too stopped up worrying about what you're going to say. Am I going to say something that's wrong? Am I going to say something that's dumb? You have to accept you're going to say something dumb and wrong, and let the pipes flow. And so I'm just saying this as an excuse. I don't even remember what thing that I said that was like slightly weird, like 45 seconds ago. But this is all just to excuse that. And so now hopefully I have done so. So hopefully you've also forgotten what I said. Whatever it was, if it was dumb. I don't even know. Maybe it wasn't even dumb. I can't even remember anymore. Anyway, that's actually when people have asked me in the past, you know, what do I do to get better at casting? Or if I want to try out casting, how do I get good at it, right? My number one piece of advice is just cast a lot. Just do it. And I think that works for a lot of things, especially performative things. Performative things, like how do you get better at it? You just do it a lot. And I think because a lot of it has to do with confidence, and not confidence in the arrogant kind of confidence, but just confidence in yourself, right? The ability to... I'll get back to that in a minute because we have a huge drop coming out here for Goodfriend. This actually is an opportunity for Midas because he can pull SCVs here and clean this up. He actually takes out a lot of units. So that's the kind of thing that Midas actually needs right now. He needs opportunities to take out a bunch of units without losing very many of his own to try and come back in this game. And that was one such opportunity. However, here is going to be the opposite thing happening. Goodfriend also has the units to drop the main, lose a bunch of stuff for almost free, and also drop the expansion at the same time and take it out. Also for free, basically. Midas just does not have enough stuff to be enough places on the map to deal with this. Here, that force of the main is now being dropped on this force in the expansion, though. He needs to clean this up so he can retake that third, or he'll be so far behind economically that he will not be able to come back in this game. Can he do it? It looks like the SCVs are strong enough to take out most of the tanks. Can he take out that last tank, though? Again, I don't even know whose tank that is because of the colors. I'm sorry about that. Midas, it looks like pushing across the middle of the map. Looks like it's actually easier to tell on the mini-map somehow. Even though it's tiny, it's easier to tell the difference in colors there. So it looks like you can see Midas is pushing out into the middle of the map to try and take more map control in this game. But anyway, to finish the thought real quick. If you cast more or you do something that's performative more, you just get more comfortable with doing it enough to let yourself go and do what you know is right and do what your practice has taught you to do well, you know? So that's usually has been my advice over the years to people that wanted to start casting is just, well, just cast. And you're going to be bad. I was terrible my first casting, I think. I guess I was okay enough that some people liked it, but, you know, I think I was pretty bad. And once I did more of it, I got more comfortable. You get into the flow more of it. And you just get better at it just from practice, you know, like anything. But I think part of performances is you get better because you've done more of it and you can let go of the anxiety a little bit more and just go with it, you know. So that's the key to not being nervous too, is just not think about it. And so if you've done something enough that you're just over it, then you don't get nervous, right? I haven't gotten nervous from a performance in maybe once or twice in decades, you know, or a couple times. But usually I don't get nervous just because I've done enough performances that it just kind of doesn't get to me anymore. So anyway, enough meta rambling. Are those SCVs attacking that command center? No, they're repairing it. Okay. Attacking and repairing, also the animations look very similar. So, like, I mean, there's not really much of an animation for either of them, so it's like kind of hard to tell, but they look the same. It's like both of them. Okay, hold that thought. This might be the killing blow here. Goodfriend has cleaned up the side bases. He cleaned up the side attacks. He's dropped on it. This is Midas trying to take the middle of the map, and Goodfriend is pushing out into the middle map to try and take control of it. And there's only a little bit map left for Midas to fall back into. He does have a nice curve on the mini map that you can kind of see. I'll try and point at it right here. You can see there's like a nice curve here where Midas does have a defensive position, but he's being pushed farther and farther back into his natural slowly. Midas has managed to restart mining at that third base at the top left position, but you know, in the meantime, Goodfriend has a fifth. Goodfriend has a fifth base. Midas has command centers, we can see, at fourth and fifth bases on the left side of the map, but I don't think they're mining. So Goodfriend is just, you know, when you get ahead, you get more ahead, you know, and Goodfriend is really just showing that how to do that in a TVT matchup. Here he is dropping again on Midas's third. But it looks like it is going to get cleaned up. Maybe? I don't know whose units those are, actually. But anyway, it's just like it's hard for me to envision Midas coming back in this game. He's just been too far behind economically. Like, we can't see the supply counts, but I would just be fairly sure that Goodfriend would be maybe like 20 supply ahead right now. Maybe even more. Maybe 30 or 40, depending on the units. Whose tanks were those? Oh, those were Goodfriend's tanks, actually. So, yeah. So, Midas actually definitely probably 30 supply behind. There's his last stand right there. If he loses that spot that we just saw, I don't, you know, he just doesn't have any control left on the map. Goodfriend is now shifting those tanks from the left side over to the middle. I think he's going to go for another big push here, like we just saw a minute ago. He's just going to unsiege those tanks and A-move with everything. And even attacking into a siege position, there's nothing he can do about it. We're about to see Midas GG in like 25 seconds. Is what I'm thinking here. Here he goes out. He's pushing in here. So much metal. Attacking so much other metal. And he actually sieges up. Okay, it's not going to be 25 seconds because Goodfriend decides to take it a little bit slower. And instead of just A-moving in there, he's actually going to siege up and take this, you know, instead of running across no man's land, he's just going to try and build his trenches forward a little bit at a time instead and take the slow game, which is fine. It makes a lot of sense. You miss the opportunity to stupidly lose all your units attacking into a siege position. I think he could have just won the game right there if he'd like pulled some SCVs and just run in and gone for the main attack. But there's no harm in taking it slower and making sure you don't F up and screw up your lead, you know? Why do they have the live sign over his supply? I want to see what his supply is. But can't tell. Anyway. We did see a 0-0 at the end, so I think it means that he's out of 200. Same here for Midas. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is Goodfriend's supply. So you can see like the 0-0 at the top right. So it's something out of 200. So it means he's probably very high in supply. He's probably, you know, at this point at least 150, I would say. But either way, possibly more actually, because he probably has 70 SCVs at this point, plus all the tanks and everything and dropships. Yeah. Anyway, okay, so now he's trying to again play the economic game. Goodfriend has taken both of the bottom left bases. He's trying to push into this left side base, and again, you know, I guess I can't completely count Midas out because if he can somehow defend this, he'll be kind of even on bases. He's been behind on bases, and so I think the total money that he's gathered is less. But if he can somehow keep his income up and try and match up with Goodfriend in the long run, maybe by retaining those left side bases, it's possible he can win a long game. Because, you know, if you can get to, if your opponent is ahead, but you're both maxed, you know, it doesn't matter if you have 1 million minerals in the bank if you're at 200 out of 200, right? I mean, it matters on the remax, but like you can still, if you're both even on supply, you can still lose a battle and lose your advantage and lose your bases, right? So that's maybe why we see Goodfriend being very deliberate about this. And he is going to push in here on the left side and take a nice advantageous position. Midas has his forces on the low ground defending the drop. And so as a result, there's a little bit of an opening for Goodfriend to move into the spot. Midas still does have a better sort of T position against those side tanks. So he's able to kind of push that back. He's not losing too much. But Goodfriend is now shelling the gas on that expansion. He's starting to do the damage to the economy, which is the point of this. So Midas needs to kind of push in a little bit closer, I think. And close around. Now Goodfriend's line has kind of spread out a bit. So there is maybe an opportunity for Midas to push out. He's bringing the SCVs out. He's trying to kill off this position. So many SCVs dying before they can even get next to that tank. He actually just sacrificed like 10 SCVs to kill one tank. And he didn't even kill it. This is turning into a long game. Long game, though. And so even though I feel like, you know, Goodfriend has had the advantage for a lot of the game, Midas has put up a fight. And he's drawing it out. And so, you know, that's something you can do. If you can draw it out and you can keep from dying in a TVT, you can get to that late game, there is still the possibility of winning. Because if, you know, if your opponent, like I was saying before, if your opponent has more units than you, you're at a disadvantage. But if you can draw it out until you have even units, because you can catch up because you're 200 out of 200, you know, there's the possibility of winning that one crucial deciding battle if you position correctly, and everything could turn around. We've seen it happen before. I remember there was a game between Hwashing and Flash, where Hwashing, I think, was ahead. Actually, I don't remember who won it, but one of the players was ahead, and the other player just drew it out till the late game, and the player that was ahead just made a bad drop and lost a bunch of units, and the other player suddenly was ahead by 30 or 40 supply, and won the game, I think, if I remember correctly, just by that crucial battle when they were both maxed out, or both close to maxed out, right? And so it can happen in a TVT especially. Anyway, this game is definitely being drawn out, and we've definitely seen this is late game TVT, where the map is divided in half. Every base has been taken. The map is colored in entirely, with you know, basically a line through the middle. Both players having their lines of tanks through the middle to try and defend their half of the map. Look at all the idle SCVs. Oh my gosh. So that's not good to have two bases not mining and have like literally 40 idle SCVs. Actually, probably 50 or 60 because that base is almost mined out. That is not good at all. He needs to be mining with those SCVs, trying to get those minerals in, or at least bringing them into attack. 20 SCVs in a siege charge is actually really strong, you know? Oh, here we go. Midas is dropping on the ground behind the expansion where you can actually shell 2 expansions at once right here. Now, luckily, there's no SCVs mining there. Now the SCVs come into mine. No, this is the wrong time, SCVs. What are you doing? You're clumping up on the minerals for the tanks to slaughter you. No! That was the exact worst timing to transfer those units. Oh my god. Oh, that was just painful to watch. I'm sitting here complaining about the SCVs not mining, and they're like, oh, well, let's go mine at these minerals where all the tanks just dropped. Goodfriend is just a better player. You know, that's just, it's easy mistakes to make, but it's a mistake that you can't afford to make at this stage in the game. Goodfriend now pushing up in towards the choke point of Midas. And he's got a large chunk of tanks there. He drew some of the forces back to the left. He rallied up to the right. You know, you throw a punch to the left, and when they block it, you go with the right punch. And that's exactly what he's doing. And Midas is just not able to keep up with the flurry of blows here coming from Goodfriend's army. Goodfriend now looks like he's mined out some stuff, and so he's actually sending his SCVs in to the battle. Actually, he might be repairing some of his units as well. But the factories are being shelled. Now Midas does have a significant amount of dropships there. That could be what gets him back into this game. If you can load up dropships with Goliaths and fly them out, I don't think Goodfriend has anything to defend against drops. His Goliaths are not in the right position. He could drop on top of all those tanks and take them out. It looks like that might be what he's trying to do right now, but he's actually going to hover his dropships within view without dropping anything to give Goodfriend a chance to respond. Midas also has Wraiths in position to block some drops as well, which is kind of cool. Goodfriend now running up the side of the map, though, into those expansion spots. He might have to redirect his dropships over to the left to try and defend this. But there's so many tanks, and he's not even sieging them up. Dropping Goliaths on unsieged tanks is not good. Yeah, but look at the shape of the colors on the minimap now. Right? It used to be divided in half. It used to be there was a dividing line right here with the north half yellow and the southern half orange. And now, look at the orange encroaching onto the yellow / I guess white territory on the top of the map. So that is the bending that's happening, and you know, even something that's sturdy, if you start to bend it too far, it's gonna snap at some point. And Midas needs to do something to bend things back, bend that line back pretty quickly, otherwise he is going to snap. Now Wraith's coming in and killing a bunch of tanks in the middle is a way to bend it back. And it looks like, again, you know, Goodfriend doesn't have a lot of defense against that. He's got a few Goliaths, and they are going to force those Wraiths back, so never mind. Those Wraiths are not going to save the day. He's trying to use the Wraiths over against these tanks on the side, but there's actually turrets there to defend. Loses the Wraith to the turret. Here come the dropships. Nope. Turns around. JK. Does not want to drop his Goliaths on top of those siege tanks and kill them. After all. It's got a lot of Wraiths, actually. It's got a lot of Wraiths here. So, you know, Goodfriend doesn't really have much to deal with those Wraiths. He's got a lot of tanks, but nothing to deal with the Wraiths. So, you know, it's possible if he can win a certain kind of battle in a certain position, he can use the Wraiths to take advantage. But, like, there's so many turrets. I don't know how he's going to do that. Here he comes in. He actually soaks up fire from the turrets with the Wraiths in order to send in his dropships. He's actually dropping a significant force in Goodfriend's main. He's got to do some significant damage here. What can Goodfriend do to respond to this? He only has like 3 dropships and they're across the map. It looks like he does have some forces he can siege up in his main. Never mind, he's going to clean this up pretty easily after all. And there's the dropships coming in to clean up the rest. So he's going to lose a few depots, but it's not going to be a significant loss, is what it looks like. Midas is doubling down, though. Coming in with Wraiths and more dropships. He's really trying to seize control of Goodfriend's main base here and trying to demolish the backline infrastructure. Killing off depots is a good thing to do. I don't think it's crucial right now. Killing the factories would be, you know, the main thing that he needs to do. Killing off a gas mine that's mined out, not a big deal. Killing off a comset station, not a big deal. Killing off a few depots, not a huge deal either. He's probably more than 200 supply from all the command centers he's built. He is doing significant damage, but it's not crippling blow it by any means yet. If he can start taking out those factories, it'd be good. And he's actually taking out the tanks with the Wraiths. Is this the comeback point for Midas? You know, is this the point where, like, maybe Goodfriend just didn't take it seriously like I didn't? Well, he's going to clean this up, and he might just start losing too much stuff. He might actually lose enough depots he won't be able to rebuild his army, and he might actually lose here. Goodfriend actually building turrets in his main base. He's got a couple Goliaths there as well, so that's pretty significant. But you know, at the same time, Goodfriend is not mining from the 10 o'clock base because those tanks are still there. I think he's still mining at all the other bases though, so he's actually, Midas is in decent shape economically. He's protected most of the expansions. This expansion is almost mined out. So he's actually, okay, well he's actually only mining at, once that expansion mines out, he's only going to be mining at 2 bases actually, so that's not great. Goodfriend might be a similar situation though, because he's been mining for longer, and so he's actually mined out more of his bases. So this base is mined out. So actually, Goodfriend is only mining 2 bases as well. So, you know, Midas has control of Goodfriend's main. I don't know, maybe, has he taken out enough infrastructure that he can maybe do something about it? Now, we just saw multiple starports being built by Goodfriend, if I saw that correctly. And I have to look at the map position because it's hard to tell from the colors. Oh, that was not the right move, SCVs. That was not the way to go. That was not the way to go. All right, now we can see first-person view. It's red versus green. We can actually tell who's whom. Nope, that lasted 3 seconds. JK. Now we can't tell anymore. So Midas is actually doing a good job here of really pushing in hard to take out more and more of Goodfriend's main base. And Goodfriend seems to have been like, okay, well, I'm just gonna put a few siege tanks here. I'm gonna kind of let that go, lose some depots, rebuild them, not a big deal, and focus on the rest of the map right now. But he's losing a lot. He's probably lost 10 depots or something like that. Lost the comsat, lost the command center. I should have checked when they showed his first-person view if he was supply blocked or below 200. I forgot to check that. Not worth going back though. This game has already been long enough. that we don't need to go back and check for more. But anyway, this is turning into a long game, and again, it's, you know, if you look at the minimap, it's like now it's kind of weird where you have this curve now. So instead of a line that's bent in the middle towards Midas, it's now kind of a curve where you actually have like a curve around the top, and so like they actually have almost even territory by area, you know. Goodfriend still has a little bit more control of the map though, so you know, I still think he has that advantage here. Now Goodfriend coming in with Cloak Rays, he actually is gonna take out. Oh, that is crucial. The surprise Cloak Wraiths take out the Goliaths, because there weren't enough Goliaths there to defend against Wraiths. And now those Wraiths are gonna be able to take out those tanks. And this is not looking good at all. Who is attacking here? I can't even see right now. It looks like Goodfriend. It looks like Midas dropped some units and Goodfriend is falling back to attack. Okay, actually Midas's Wraiths coming in to defend against Goodfriend's Wraiths. They're both cloaked. They're both having to scan here. It looks like Goodfriend has a couple more Wraiths, and it doesn't even matter because he already took out all the tanks. So Midas actually just throwing his Wraiths. I mean, it was a good move to send them in as quickly as possible, but they had to fly too far across the map to actually get to that location to actually defend. And so he loses the tanks and loses the Wraiths. So now Goodfriend definitely has the map advantage. Oh, he's actually completely taken control of that expansion. That's kind of cute. Midas is actually mining from the backside of those minerals. Or he was, but now those SCVs are getting shelled as well. You know, I've been kind of looking for ways for Midas to come back in this game, but I just feel like he's run out of those ways. It's too late into the game, and Goodfriend now has every advantage. Midas doesn't even have the air control. He's lost that incursion into Goodfriend's main base. He's not mining enough places. I want to see Goodfriend mine the middle minerals. Let's have him mine that cross. That'd be fun. And again, you know, look at the positioning as well. Goodfriend's tanks in the middle of the map are actually in the best defensive position. Whereas look at kind of Midas's tanks are kind of going backwards. He's kind of forced to be in not the best position because he's kind of a little bit surrounded there. So his tanks are not in a great spot to actually defend a push either. So whereas Goodfriend's tanks are in a good position to defend against a push. So it's not like Goodfriend is leaving himself open for a push where Midas could take control of parts of the middle map. And there's the slow GG. It's kind of one of those, it's not one of those, oh my gosh, I just lost an epic battle and I'm gonna lose now, GG's. It's one of those like exhaustion where it's just slowly sinking in that there's just no way back into the game. The long run is not going to win you. You know, it's like the long run. If you're running a marathon, but your opponent has gotten 4 or 5 miles ahead of you, it's like, well, it doesn't matter if you can keep running. They're still going to get to 26 way ahead of you. So there's no point in continuing on. And it finally sinks in that Midas just cannot keep control of any of his mining at that point, and he has to GG. So Goodfriend is victorious. He does take his series 2-0 in the quarterfinal. So again, you know, I don't have it written in here, but we've got 3 of the 4 quarterfinals now solved or have been completed. Zelos versus Jelizer is going to be one of the semifinals. Goodfriend, not surprisingly, is going to advance and have to face Go Rush or Reach in the semifinal. Go Rush versus Reach is going to be an amazing series. I'm looking forward to that. And Goodfriend versus Go Rush or Reach is also going to be an amazing series. Looking forward to that as well. And it's kind of interesting. I don't know if they did this on purpose somehow, putting 2 TVTs in the quarterfinals to make it less likely to have TVT in the semifinals or the finals. I don't know if that was intentional. I don't know how they determine it or anything like that. But anyway, yeah, so we have two Terrans knocked out in the quarterfinals, 3 Terrans knocked out in the quarterfinals, actually. And so we're going to have TVZ on one of the semifinals, and we're going to have a TV something in the other semifinal, and we could still end up with a TVT finals. It could be a TVZ finals. Could be a ZVP finals. Can you imagine that in 2005? Not a Terran in the finals? How can you imagine such a thing? Anyway, That's going to do it for this game. Hope you guys enjoyed it very much. We're going to get to the last quarterfinals before too long. Go Rush versus Reach. Look forward to that. It's going to be awesome. Hope you all enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.